Have you ever been passionate about anything? Food, cars, clothes, or just weird shit? And when you're passionate about anything, you want to know more about it. To me, that passion is Halo. Halo is my Star Wars, my Avengers. I love everything the series has to offer. All the video games, all the books, everything. And as something that you're usually passionate about, you usually want to share it with other people. And that's what I'm going to do. I want to share my passion with other people. And I want to share you my thoughts on every single Halo game there is out there. And I figured the best place to start is Halo Reach. Now, Halo Reach isn't technically the first chronological video game in the series, since that's thanks to Halo Wars, and it also wasn't the first Halo game released, which was Halo Combat Evolved, obviously. But Halo Reach is an important game nonetheless. It serves as a prequel to Halo 1. It also was the first Halo game that ever got me into Halo. And this sort of sentimental value with this game is why I want to review it first. Halo Reach is a unique video game in a lot of areas. For one, it's an end of an era. This was the last video game Bungie made for Halo. And they would obviously move on to do bigger and better things. Destiny, obviously, for better, for worse.
We haven't got much time.
Who are you?
Why have you been watching us?
I don't even have time to explain why I don't have time to explain.
It's also the beginning of an era. The time that 343 started to get involved with Halo increased around this time, so it was the beginning of an era. Also, this video game kind of kickstarts Halo 1 and all the other games that would follow suit, so that also has it going for it. Halo Reach is a great game and one of the best games in the series in my opinion. Excellent campaign, great multiplayer, and the closest thing that Bungie had to great customization. And before we get into that, I'm going to talk about the story and recap it for people that don't quite remember. Halo Reach takes place on the planet Reach, the UNSC military heart of the galaxy, and you follow Noble Team: Carter, John, George, Emil, Kat, and Noble 6, or the Lone Wolf, or the person that you play as. Also, the Spartan that you can customize the armor to, which appears as it does in cutscenes. You investigate the mysterious disappearance of a relay, eventually discovering the fact that the Covenant have landed on Reach. Not only that, there's also a giant armada ready to invade the planet. The game eventually falls into trying to prevent the inevitable destruction of the planet. You do this by trying to destroy pylons, doing saber-to-saber combat in outer space, getting into a cruiser and using a slip space generator to blow up a Covenant ship, and also jumping back down to the planet to help defend the city of New Alexandria from the Covenant. The story takes a hard right turn when you eventually discover that Dr. Halsey has tasked you to help deliver this AI, Cortana, which is important for the later Halo games, to the ship of Pillar of Autumn, which is an important ship for the later Halo games, by the way. Eventually, you do this and succeed by giving the AI to Captain Keyes, the captain of the Pillar of Autumn. But you do this at a cost. Most of Noble Team by this point has died throughout the rest of the campaign as you played along, and eventually as the player die on his own as the Lone Wolf. But you do succeed at allowing the Pillar of Autumn to escape the planet Reach, with the game ending as the Pillar of Autumn approaches Installation 04, kicking off the first Halo's events. So that was the story of Halo Reach. In my opinion, not quite as amazing or as cool as Halo 2's story, but not as bad and not near the levels of Halo 5 bad. But nonetheless, I think Reach's story and campaign are very good. For one thing, many themes resonate with me. This sort of one theme is that this inevitable dread, this inevitable death. There's this sort of feeling that yes, Reach will fall, but the thing is, what will you do? What are you going to do to help? Will you just sit by and let the Covenant take over the planet? Or will you try your best to help save humanity and try to at least prevent the inevitable end of the planet? This theme is throughout the entire game, and is shown perfectly with Noble Team. Even though against incredible odds, do their best to prevent the inevitable destruction of the planet. And it's kind of an inspiration to me in my life. Death is always a constant reminder in our lives nonetheless. But it's like what we're going to do in our lives that matters. Are you just going to sit by and be depressed and let death consume you? Or will you try to do your best to live the fullest of life as you can? And Noble Team definitely did that, in my opinion. Many other things about the campaign and story and the game also are great. For one thing, Noble Team is great. There's many lines that I can quote from them, and the way that their armors look is very unique and original. Noble Team, in terms of characterization, is quite a double-edged sword though. For one thing, many people have complained there's a lack of characterization with Noble Team. Like, there isn't enough character development. And to me, it's a double-edged sword. On one side, yes, knowing more about these characters would be extremely nice and awesome, but it would also kind of take away from the whole theme of destruction and dread and the fall of the planet, and it would kind of distract us from it. While this lack of characterization does make their deaths seem a little more weightless or pointless, and I think if you can find some kind of middle ground, it would have really benefited Noble Team. I think the characterization that's in the game, which there is characterization, it's not like Halo 5 where it's just alien. There's no emotion.
Turn to infinity immediately.
Negative infinity. I don't like it. I haven't got time for this Mickey Mouse bullshit!
Halo Reach, there is emotion. There are characterizations, but it's more subtle and more of the less in the variety and less in quantity.
Hours.
48 hours?
That's imminent?
Uh-oh. Who's your money on this time?
Her.
You always pick her.
She's always had him dialed in.
But nonetheless, there is characterization in Noble Team. I only wish there was maybe a little more characterization, but not to upset the balance of the story in terms of the inevitable destruction of the planet. Nonetheless, there's other positives with the Halo Reach. I think for one thing, the campaign shows many great locations and many great levels. The campaign has a lush variety of levels and environments you fight in. You can go from New Alexandria, to the stockyards of the Pillar of Autumn, to the Covenant Cruiser, to the grasslands of Reach. There's plenty of to do and plenty to go and plenty to see. Also, Sword Base just looked pretty awesome as a whole, and going back to it being destroyed and all was pretty awesome. So the campaign shows many iconic locations and a nice variety. Also, the cutscenes are amazing. Their handheld style is really amazing and cool, and like I said, it shows some characterization of Noble Team. Maybe not a huge amount, but enough to at least understand and like these characters in my opinion. Also, the new Spartan Abilities are amazing. Now, I know Sprint is a pretty controversial topic in the Halo community, and I personally have never had a problem with it since sprinting has always been a major part of modern shooters. But what's nice about Halo Reach is it has something for every Halo fan. You can kind of just, not equip Sprint as an option, and you can just equip Armor Lock, which is a really bad Spartan ability, by the way, as an option. And it makes every Halo player at least a little bit happy, so it's got something a little bit for everybody. Also, the campaign has many iconic moments, and the sort of death of Noble Team was really hard and tragic to see. It really emphasizes the sacrifices that were made to help at least try to save the planet Reach, or help try to delay the inevitable end to humanity, or at least the lack of an end of humanity. And that's what's important about Halo Reach. Realizing the fact that humanity did its best against the Covenant and that their sacrifices were not in vain. Also gives a little more background in the weight of things in the later Halo games. Like when you see Master Chief try to save the world, you know the stakes are huge and high, especially when you realize all the sacrifices were made on Reach to get to this point. Now, is Halo Reach's campaign and story perfect? No. I think for one thing, like I said, with the characterization of Noble Team, maybe a little bit more could have helped. I also feel like the Covenant should have had a real antagonist in the story. Now, I'm not saying that, once again, there should have been a full-on two-sided campaign like in Halo 2. But what I'm saying is an antagonist would have helped. Now, like the characterization of Noble Team, it's a double-edged sword. For one thing, the Covenant not having a single antagonist does make them a little more scary. But at the same time, it also gives them a lack of characterization, and a lack of, we can point at a bad guy for all our woes and sorrows. And I think Halo Reach needed that. Some kind of Covenant antagonist, like some kind of fleet commander or something, you know, just someone we can point the finger at and say, he's the bad guy. Probably would have helped in my opinion. Also, maybe the less drastic shift of, hey, out of nowhere, we're going to say, you got to deliver this AI to this ship. It feels kind of out of the blue, and maybe if it was more subtly put throughout the game and a little more mentioned, it would have helped as well. I have no problem with delivering the AI to the Pillar of Autumn, because it beautifully ties into Halo 1, but just kind of feels out of place and out of nowhere. But nonetheless, it's a really cool moment of the game. And like I said, many other parts of the game are also really amazing. The weapons are great, some of the new abilities are cool as hell, like Drop Shield and Hologram as the Spartan Abilities are great, and it explored sort of the prototype of what Spartan Abilities would become in the later Halo games. This game is also it fits in pretty well with the Fall of Reach book in my opinion. There's other videos explaining how these two are connected, but it fits in pretty decently in my opinion. Overall, the Halo Reach campaign is really solid. It's not great, it's not beautiful, but it's pretty good. It was a great way to end the Bungie era of video games, and it would also begin the 343 era of video games for better or for worse. And the multiplayer. I know I didn't mention the multiplayer much in this review, since I mainly just reviewed the campaign, and that's what I mainly care about when it comes to the Halo games, but the multiplayer was also really solid. For one thing, the customization of your Spartan was amazing in this game. No other Halo game has ever came close to the level that Reach had with its customization. You can customize your Spartan pretty well, and not only that, but you can customize and get parts for your Spartan in-game. You don't have to buy loot crates or loot boxes to get it, you just have to freaking earn your way through the game, which is awesome. And also, it appears as it does in cutscenes, which I mentioned before, is amazing. But I don't have much else to say about the multiplayer. It's really good, Forge is really good, and that's pretty much all I got to say about it. Halo Reach is a great game. It features a great campaign, a good multiplayer, great customization, and it ends beautifully as it ties in with Halo 1 and the events of Halo 1 that would happen after this game. It's a good beginning to the Halo series, and if you're a Halo fan, I would highly recommend to get involved with Halo Reach, if you want to. And it would obviously, you know, leave an era of Bungie that obviously Bungie fans will miss to this day. Halo Reach, nonetheless, is a really good game, and I would highly recommend it. If I have to give it a Halo rating, I probably would give it 4 out of 5 Jackal snipers. It's very good.